Have you ever wondered what would happen if the monsters weren't actually the biggest threat in an apocalypse? Because that's exactly what Kim Dokja is about to discover. Last episode, Dokja survived being swallowed by a giant sea serpent, negotiated a streaming contract with Dokkaebi Bihyung, escaped a poisonous wasteland, and barely managed to reach Geumho Station alive. After everything he endured, you'd think finally finding a shelter full of survivors would be a good thing. Unfortunately, this is Omniscient Reader's viewpoint. And in this story, people are usually far more dangerous than monsters. So grab your tea because today we're heading into one of the darkest stations in Seoul, a place where food is power, fear is currency, and one smiling man has convinced an entire station to hand over their freedom willingly. This is episode 3 of ORV, the story of Geumho Station. Welcome to Otaku Tea Time, where we spill the tea on manga, manhwa, and webtoon stories. If you don't want to read hundreds of chapters, don't worry, I got you. Grab your tea, sit back, and let's get into the story. When Kim Dokja finally makes it inside Geumho Station, the first thing he notices isn't relief, isn't desperation. The underground station is packed with survivors, dozens of people huddled together in the dark, exhausted, hungry, and terrified. Some have injuries, others stare blankly at the floor. Nobody looks hopeful. To an outsider, this might seem strange. After all, everyone here survived the first scenario. But Dokcha understands something most people don't. Every single person here survived by killing someone. Nobody likes talking about it, but the first scenario forced people to murder other human beings in order to live. Every person in this station carries that burden. Every survivor is also a killer. And when you gather 100 frightened killers into one enclosed space, society doesn't magically rebuild itself. It breaks apart. Dokcha quickly learns that Geumho Station has already split into factions. There is a major group that controls most of the station's resources. Then there is everyone else. The major group controls the food. The major group controls security. The major group controls information. And most importantly, the major group controls hope. Their leader is a man named Han Inho. At first glance, Inho appears reasonable. He speaks calmly, he smiles often, he tells people everything will be okay. He promises government rescue teams are coming. He tells everyone they just need to cooperate a little longer. And because terrified people desperately want someone to believe in, they listen. Dokja immediately recognizes the danger. People weren't difficult to understand. They were openly violent, openly selfish, openly cruel. Inho is different. He's the kind of person who uses kindness as a weapon, the kind of person who gains power by convincing people he's helping them. And according to the novel Kim Dokcha spent over a decade reading, Han Inho is one of the most dangerous people in Geumho Station, not because he's strong, but because he's smart. As Dokcha settles in, he meets a young man named Hong, who explains the situation on the station. Food is becoming scarce. The major group distributes meals. People who don't cooperate receive less food. People who challenge authority mysteriously stop receiving help. The station isn't officially ruled by Inho, but everyone knows he controls everything. And that's exactly how he likes it. Soon afterward, Dokcha learns about another survivor connected to his group, the woman he carried through the poisonous gas. Her name is Jong Hae-won. Right now, she's part of one of the food collection teams. According to Hong, multiple groups have been sent above ground to gather supplies. Most of the people who disappear belong to the weaker faction. Strangely, they never return. Dokcha already knows what this means because he remembers exactly what happened in the novel. The people aren't disappearing, they're being sacrificed. The station's leadership has discovered a convenient way to keep themselves fed. They send weaker survivors into dangerous areas while the people giving the orders stay safely underground. If the scavengers return with food, everyone celebrates. If they die, replacements are easy to find. It is exploitation disguised as cooperation, and Han Inho has built an entire power structure around it. Not long after arriving, Dokja receives an invitation. Han Inho wants to meet him personally. The meeting takes place in one of the station's most secure areas. Inho greets Dokja warmly, almost too warmly. He praises Dokja's accomplishments. He talks about his bravery. He talks about how everyone admires him. Then he makes his real proposal. Join me, not as a follower, as a partner. Inho claims they can save everyone together. He says the station needs strong leaders. He says people like Dokja has the responsibility to help society rebuild. To anyone else, the offer might sound appealing, but Kim Dokja already knows the future. And because he knows the future, he knows exactly what Han Inho is really asking. He's not offering partnership. He's offering a cage. The moment Dokja accepts, he becomes part of Inho's system, part of the machine that profits from fear, part of the machine that turns desperate survivors into resources. So Dokja refuses immediately, without hesitation. The smile on Inho's face never changes. But Dokja notices something behind his eyes. For just a moment, the mask slips, and the real Han Inho looks back. Inho doesn't argue. He doesn't threaten. He doesn't even seem offended. Instead, he simply tells Dokja that if he ever changes his mind, the offer will remain open. That answer alone confirms everything Dokja already suspected. People like Han Inho don't need to force others to obey. They create situations where obedience becomes the only comfortable choice. As Dokja leaves the meeting, Hong asks whether refusing was really the right decision. After all, Inho controls most of the station, most of the food, most of the people. Wouldn't it be safer to cooperate? Dokja's answer is simple: no. Because once you accept help from someone like Han Inho, that help always comes with strings attached. Soon afterward, Dokja opens the bags he filled before entering the station. Instantly, everyone's eyes widen. Food. Actual food. Not scraps. Not leftovers. Food. The reaction is almost immediate. People who barely acknowledged him before suddenly gather around. Some stare. Some whisper. Others try to hide how desperate they want what he's carrying. It isn't greed, it's hunger, the kind that slowly erases a person's pride. Dokja begins distributing food to his companions, Yoo Sangah, Lee Gilyong, and the others. They haven't eaten properly in days. For a brief moment, things seem peaceful. Then the complaints begin. A group of survivors approaches. Their expressions are angry, not because Dokja has food, but because he isn't sharing it equally. They argue that food should belong to everyone. They claim no one should be allowed to monopolize resources. At first glance, their argument sounds reasonable. In fact, it sounds noble. But Dokja immediately sees the trap. Because these people did not come to negotiate, they came to pressure him. Someone has already influenced them. Someone has convinced them that the food belongs to the station. And Dokja already knows exactly who that someone is. Han Inho. This is another one of his tricks. If Dokja shares everything, Inho gains control of the supplies. If Dokja refuses, Inho can paint him as selfish. Either outcome benefits Inho. It's a political trap disguised as morality. Dokja decides not to play. The food belongs to him. He risks his life obtaining it, and he isn't going to surrender it simply because a manipulator wants to redistribute power. The angry crowd grows larger. People begin shouting. Some demand fairness. Others accuse Dokja of being greedy. A few even claim Inho should manage the supplies instead. Dokja looks at them and almost laughs. The apocalypse has barely started, and humanity is already rebuilding bureaucracy. Then a notification suddenly appears. The second main scenario is approaching. The crowd immediately falls silent because everyone knows what that means. More people are going to die. The scenario reveals a new objective. The survivors must continue gathering resources while preparing for future disasters. And once again, Geumho Station begins moving. But this time, the station's politics become even uglier. Not long afterward, Dokja discovers one of Inho's biggest methods of control. Anyone wanting protection must contribute resources. Anyone wanting food must contribute resources. Anyone wanting shelter must contribute resources. On paper, it sounds logical. In reality, it's extortion. The weak become dependent, the strong become richer. And every day, the gap between them grows larger. Inho never directly steals from anyone. Instead, he creates a system that convinces people to surrender everything willingly. Dokja has seen this before, not in the apocalypse, in real life. And that's exactly why it disgusts him. Meanwhile, another problem begins emerging. Food supplies continue shrinking. No matter how carefully everyone rationed what little they had left, Geumho Station couldn't survive much longer. Soon, a new sub-scenario appeared. The survivors needed to hunt monsters for food. There was no other choice. If they wanted to keep living, they had to leave the station and fight. Many people hesitated. Just making it to Geumho Station had nearly cost them their lives. Now they were being told to walk right back into the ruined streets. Dokja wasn't surprised. He had already read this part of Three Ways to Survive in the Ruined World. He knew the scenario wasn't simply about gathering food. It was another test of humanity. The stronger survivors quickly began hunting monsters, while everyone else struggled to keep up. Although the monsters weren't especially powerful, they attacked in groups and slowly drained everyone's stamina. Doctor watched as his companions adapted faster than he expected. Jong Hee-won fought fiercely with her weapon. Yoo Sangah even managed to kill several monsters despite having no combat experience before the apocalypse. Lee Yeon-sung protected the others whenever they were overwhelmed. Everyone was slowly becoming stronger. As the hunt came to an end, Yoo Sang-al looked at the pile of monster corpses and asked the question everyone was thinking. How are we supposed to eat these? Dokja calmly answered that they couldn't eat them yet, but they would soon find a way. The others looked at him with confused expressions. By now, they had started realizing something. Kim Dokja always seemed to know what was coming next. Dokja decided it's time to hunt. Gathering several companions, he prepares an expedition into the darkness. Yoo Sang-ah joins him, Lee Gil-young joins him, others reluctantly follow. As they descend deeper underground, the atmosphere changes. The air grows colder, the tunnels become narrower, and the strange sound begin echoing throughout the darkness. Before anyone could ask another question, disaster struck. A ground rat suddenly burst out from the darkness and grabbed Mr. Han before anyone could react. His desperate screams echoed through the area as the monsters dragged him underground. Yoo Sanga instinctively reached out to save him, but another ground rat appeared and seized her as well. Everything happened in an instant. Dokcha immediately lunged forward and caught Sangha's hand. But for a brief second, it looked like he was about to pull her back to safety. Then, his fingers opened. He let go. Everyone froze. To them, it looked like Dokja had failed to save her. But one person noticed something different. Lee Gil-young. He had been watching Dokja the entire time. Later, when the others were still trying to understand what had happened, Gil-young quietly asked Dokja a simple question. Did you let her go on purpose? Dokja smiled faintly. There was no point lying to the boy. Gilliam was far more observant than most adults. Dokja explained that ground rats always carried everything they captured back to their nest. If he had rescued Sangha immediately, they would have lost their only guide to the creature's lair. By letting the ground rats escape with their captives, Dokja had guaranteed they would lead him straight to the source of the problem. It was a cruel decision, but it was also the fastest way to save both Yoo Sangah and Mr. Han while uncovering whatever was controlling the ground rats. Without wasting any more time, Dokcha prepared to head underground. Only Lee Gulyong accompanied him. Using his inner species communication skill, Gulyong communicated with the insects hidden throughout the tunnels, allowing them to safely navigate the maze beneath Geumho Station. Their destination was a place known as the Dark Fold, a realm where almost all light disappeared. The deeper they descended, the stranger everything became. The walls twisted unnaturally, the air felt heavy, even the direction beneath their feet became difficult to judge. Eventually, they found Yosanga and Mr. Han alive. Unfortunately, their reunion lasted only a moment. A terrifying presence began spreading throughout the cavern. The ground rats immediately retreated as though welcoming their master. And there, in the darkness, they see it. The creature responsible for everything, the ruler of the underground, the monster controlling the ground rats, the being known as the Warden of Darkness. For a moment, nobody moves, nobody speaks, because the creature before them doesn't look like something that should exist. Its presence alone feels overwhelming, ancient, monstrous, completely different from anything they have fought before. Even Kim Doksha feels tension creeping into his chest, because he knows exactly how dangerous this enemy is. In the original story, countless people died here. Entire groups were wiped out. This isn't a monster designed to test survivors. It's a monster designed to slaughter them. The warden slowly opens his eyes. An immense wave of pressure crashes through the cavern. The ground rats immediately retreat, like servants making way for a king. The battle hasn't started yet, but everyone already understands one thing. This is unlike anything they've faced before, and for the first time since arriving at Geumho Station, even Kim Dokcha isn't completely certain how this will end. Now let's spill some extra tea on why this episode is so important. A lot of people remember the giant monster and crazy scenarios in Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. But Geumho Station is where the story starts showing us that humanity can be just as dangerous as the creatures created by the star stream. Han Inho isn't the strongest person we've met so far. He isn't a regressor like Yoo Jong-kyuk. He isn't secretly carrying some overpowered skill. What makes him dangerous is that he understands people. He understands fear. He understands hunger. And he understands that desperate people will often surrender their freedom if someone promises them safety. That's why Kim Dokcha rejects him immediately. Dokcha isn't fighting monsters here. He's fighting a system designed to make people dependent. This is also the first time we really see the difference between Kim Dokcha and Yoo Jong-kyuk. Jong-kyuk would probably smash his way through the problem. Dokcha studies it. He manipulates it. He breaks it from the inside. The ground rat section is another moment that becomes much more important when you look back later. At first, it seems like a simple food gathering mission, but it's actually teaching us one of the core rules of ORV. Nothing in this world exists without a story behind it. The ground rats aren't just random monsters. The station isn't just a station, and the people disappearing weren't random victims. Everything is connected to a much bigger narrative. Then we have Yosanga's kidnapping. One thing I really like about this part of the story is that Sanga isn't treated as a baggage. She's smart, capable, and consistently adapts to the apocalypse faster than most survivors. That's one reason she becomes such an important member of Kim Dokcha's future group. And finally, we get our first look at the Warden of Darkness. Up until now, Kim Dokcha has looked almost unbeatable because he knows the novel. He always seemed to have a plan. But the warden is one of the first enemies that reminds us knowledge alone isn't enough. Sometimes you still have to face a monster strong enough to kill you. And that's exactly where we're leaving things today. Kim Dokja has found the creature behind the disappearance. Yoo Sangah is still trapped. The ground rats are gathering. And one of the deadliest battles of the early story is about to begin. Next time, we'll see whether Kim Dokja can defeat the Warden of Darkness, save Yoo Sangah, and finally break Han Inho's grip over Geumho Station. Until then, grab some tea, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye! If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more manga, manhwa, and webtoon summaries. And I'll see you next time for more Otaku Tea Time. Bye!